There is a document that has shaped the laws, the families, the gender roles, and the moral architecture of Western civilization for over 2,000 years. Billions of people have staked their identities on it. Wars have been fought over its interpretation. Courts have cited it. Preachers have weaponized it. And buried inside that document, in a single word, in a single translation choice made by temple scribes with a political agenda, is a manipulation so elegant, so complete, that almost no one ever noticed it happened. The word is tsela, tsela, and the way it was translated changed everything about what it means to be a man, a woman, and a human being. This is the story of how the original human was erased from the code of Genesis, and why someone needed that erasure to stick. Let's start with a problem that sits right on the surface of the Bible, so obvious that most people walk past it without blinking. Open Genesis to chapter 1. In the beginning, God creates the world in 6 days. On the 6th day, and I'm reading the King James Version, he says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." And the text says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." Male and female, simultaneously, from the same divine template, equal in origin, equal in dignity. That's Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. Now turn to chapter 2. Same book, same God, supposedly the same story. But now the sequence changes completely. A single man is formed from the dust of the ground. He walks alone in the garden. He names the animals. Then, and only then, does God decide he needs a companion. So God puts the man to sleep, removes something from his body, and builds a woman from it. And the man says, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." Two different stories, two different theologies, two radically different power structures. In the first account, humanity is a unified creation, dual, symmetric, whole. In the second, one gender is primary, original, complete. The other is secondary, derivative, built from a leftover part. Biblical scholars have known about this contradiction for centuries. The academic consensus is that Genesis is a composite document, assembled from at least two separate ancient source traditions. The first account comes from the so-called priestly source, written probably during or after the Babylonian exile, around the 6th century BCE. The second account comes from the older Yahwist source, possibly from the 10th or 9th century BCE. These weren't two chapters of the same book. They were two competing mythologies. Someone stitched them together. And in that stitching, one story quietly swallowed the other. Now we get to the linguistic forensics. And this is where it gets genuinely strange. The Hebrew word that gets translated as rib in Genesis chapter 2 is tsela, tsela. In English Bibles, it almost always appears as rib, Adam's rib, the rib from which Eve was made. It's one of the most iconic images in all of Western religious tradition. Michelangelo painted it. Theologians built entire doctrines around it. And it has been used for 2 millennia to justify the subordination of women. There is only one problem. The word tsela does not primarily mean rib. Look at every other place in the Hebrew Bible where this word appears. Tsela appears approximately 40 times in the Old Testament. Let's count how many of those times it means rib. In the anatomical sense, a bone in the human chest. The answer is once. Exactly one time. Here, in this story. in this single verse that has defined gender hierarchy for the entire Western world. Every other use of tsela in the Bible refers to architectural structures, beams, sides, planks, panels, the chambers along the sides of the temple in Jerusalem, the boards of the tabernacle, the slopes of a hill,
the side of an ark, the flanks of a structure. Tsela is an architectural and topographical term. It means side. It means flank. It means one half of a symmetric structure. It is the word a builder uses, not a surgeon. In 1 Kings chapter 6, describing the construction of Solomon's temple, the side chambers were 3 stories high, one above another, 30 in each story. They were set into the wall of the temple all around, so as not to be set into the wall itself. The word for side chambers there? Tsela, plural, tselaot. In Exodus, describing the Ark of the Covenant, you shall cast 4 gold rings for it, and attach them to its 4 feet, 2 rings on the one side of it, and 2 rings on the other side of it. The word side? Tsela. This is not a subtle ambiguity. This is a word with a clear, documented, overwhelmingly consistent meaning. And that meaning is not rib. It is side. It is half of a whole. It is one face of a symmetric construction. So when Genesis chapter 2 says God took the tsela from the Adam, he didn't take a rib. He took a side. He took half. He divided one whole being into 2 symmetric halves. That changes everything about the story. Now we need to talk about the word Adam itself, because here the manipulation goes even deeper. In Hebrew, Adam, spelled Aleph, Dalet, Mem, is a generic term. It means human being, humanity, person. It shares its root with Adama, which means ground, soil, earth. The Adam is the earth creature, the being made from the dust. It is not a name, it is a category. In the earliest layers of the Genesis text, before the creature is divided, it is called Ha-Adam. The definite article Ha, meaning the. Not Adam the man, not a personal name. The human, the archetypal earth creature. Genderless, or rather doubly gendered, both at once. This is not a fringe interpretation. The Talmud discusses it directly. In Tractate Berachot and Tractate Eruvin, the rabbis debate the original nature of the first human, and several conclude, based on the Genesis text itself, that the original Ha-Adam was biformed, androgynous, a single being containing both masculine and feminine aspects, which were then separated into 2 distinct beings. Rabbi Jeremiah ben Eliezer said, "When the Holy One, blessed be He, created the first human, He created him with 2 faces." The Midrash Rabbah expands on this. The original human was created face to back, and then God separated them. Even the Greek philosophical tradition converged on this reading. In Plato's Symposium, Aristophanes gives his famous speech about the original humans being double-bodied, spherical creatures with 2 faces, 4 arms, 4 legs, until Zeus split them in half, leaving each half searching for its other side for the rest of eternity. This idea, the original whole human, divided into 2 equal and complementary halves, appears independently across multiple ancient cultures. It is not a marginal reading. It may be the original reading. Now here is the manipulation. When the tsela is removed from the Ha-Adam, the remaining half is still called Ha-Adam in many manuscripts, the human. But over time, through translation choices and manuscript traditions, this shifts. The remaining half gets coded as definitively male. It becomes
the man. It becomes Adam as a proper name, a specific individual, a gendered person. And the half that was taken, the tsela, the side, becomes Eve, the woman. Built from a piece of Adam rather than Adam's other half. The symmetry is broken. The hierarchy is installed. And it all hinged on that one word, tsela. Let's talk about who benefited. The consolidation of the Hebrew Bible into something approaching its current form happened primarily during and after the Babylonian exile, roughly 587 to 538 BCE. This was a period of profound national trauma. Jerusalem had been destroyed.
The temple had been burned. The elite of Judean society had been deported to Babylon. When the exiles returned and began the project of rebuilding, not just the temple, but the entire social order, they needed a founding mythology. They needed a sacred text that would unify the people, establish authority, and legitimize a particular social structure. That social structure was controlled by a priestly class. It was hierarchical, it was patrilineal, and it was, by necessity, patriarchal. The original myth, the Ha-Adam, divided into two equal tselaot, two symmetric halves that together constitute humanity, doesn't serve that agenda. It gives women equal standing in the cosmic order. It implies that gender is a secondary division of a primary unity, not an original hierarchy. It makes the relationship between men and women one of reunion and completion, not dominance and submission. The revised myth, the man as primary, the woman as a derivative body part, created specifically to be a helper, an azer, serves a completely different purpose. It writes female subordination into the code of creation itself. If God made woman from man's spare part, then woman's secondary status isn't a human political choice. It's cosmological law. The word azer, by the way, which gets translated as helper, implying an assistant, a subordinate, also appears in the Psalms, describing God himself coming to the rescue of Israel. Our help, our azer, is in the name of the Lord. The word doesn't mean subordinate assistant. It means powerful ally. But that context gets quietly dropped when it applies to Eve. This is pattern behavior, the same techniques applied consistently. Take a word that means one thing, use it to mean something smaller, something lesser, something that confirms the hierarchy you're trying to establish. Now let's talk about the oldest evidence, because this trail doesn't start in Jerusalem. It starts in Mesopotamia, thousands of years earlier. The Sumerians were writing myths about creation, while the ancestors of the Hebrews were still nomadic herders on the fringes of the ancient Near East. Their mythological texts are some of the oldest written literature on Earth, predating the Hebrew Bible by more than 1,000 years. In the Sumerian myth of Enki and Ninhursag, the great mother goddess Ninhursag creates a series of deities to heal the ailments of Enki, the god of wisdom. Among the deities she creates is one named Ninti. She is created to heal Enki's rib. Now here is the extraordinary thing. In Sumerian, the word ti means two things simultaneously. It means rib, and it means life. This is a genuine linguistic pun built into the Sumerian language itself. So the name Ninti means both lady of the rib and lady who gives life. The myth plays on this double meaning deliberately and elaborately. Scholars of comparative religion, beginning with Samuel Noah Kramer in the mid-20th century, identified this as a likely origin for the Eve story in Genesis. The Hebrew adaptation took the Sumerian rib and life pun and translated it. But here is what happened in translation. In Hebrew, the word for rib is tsela, and the word for life is kai.
They are completely unrelated. There is no pun. There is no wordplay. The double meaning of the Sumerian original simply does not exist in Hebrew. So the Hebrew authors knew they were adapting a story about a woman who was simultaneously the Lady of the Rib and the Lady of Life. They kept the rib. They erased the life. And then they made Eve the figure through whom death enters the world rather than life. The inversion is precise. The Sumerian Ninti, powerful, life-giving, a deity in her own right, becomes Eve. Secondary, derivative, defined by her body part, and ultimately blamed for humanity's downfall. This is not coincidence. This is adaptation with intent.
Someone knew the original story well enough to take it apart and reassemble it with different conclusions. Let me steelman the objection, because I know what the counter-argument is, and it deserves to be taken seriously. This is just allegorical language, poetic imagery. Nobody was ever supposed to read rib as a literal anatomical claim. The whole story is a metaphor. You're over-reading a translation issue and turning it into a conspiracy. 3 responses. First, the allegorical argument would be more convincing if the allegorical interpretation hadn't been used for centuries as the basis for concrete legal restrictions on women. Canon law, property rights, marriage law, the right to testify in court. These weren't treated as metaphors. They were enforced as divine ordinances derived from a literal reading of Genesis 2. If it was always just poetry, then it was remarkably effective policy. Second, the translation choice to use rib rather than side is not obvious or inevitable. It is a choice, and it is a choice that goes against the overwhelming statistical weight of how tsela is used everywhere else in the same text. No responsible translator should make that choice without flagging the ambiguity. Most don't even mention it. Third, the Sumerian parallel is not cherry-picked coincidence. The scholarly consensus on the relationship between Mesopotamian mythology and early Hebrew literature is robust. The flood narrative, the creation from clay, the garden of the gods, the serpent, and immortality. These are patterns of cultural transmission with documented historical pathways. The rib life pun in Sumerian is precisely the kind of narrative seed that gets adapted, altered, and redeployed. The question is always, adapted how, and by whom, and toward what end? The translation of tsela as rib is not an innocent mistake. It is either a long-standing error that nobody ever bothered to correct, which is its own damning indictment, or it is something more deliberate. Either way, the consequences have been catastrophic. Let's be precise about how this works. Because the mechanism of ideological control through linguistic manipulation is not unique to this story, it is a repeating pattern. Step 1. You start with a text that carries one meaning. Tsela means side. Ha-Adam means the human. Ezer means powerful ally. Minti means lady of life. These meanings are clear. They are documented. They are supported by comparative textual evidence. Step 2. You introduce a translation that narrows, diminishes, or inverts the meaning. Side becomes rib. The human becomes the man. Powerful ally becomes helper. Lady of life becomes a derivative afterthought. Step 3. The new translation enters the canonical text. It gets codified in the Septuagint, the Latin Vulgate, the King James Version, the Douay Rheims, the New International Version. It gets repeated by Augustine, by Aquinas, by Luther, by Calvin, by every preacher who has ever used Genesis to explain why women should be silent in church and obedient in the home. Step 4. The original meaning is forgotten. It becomes arcane, academic, available only to those with access to scholarly texts and the Hebrew language. Meanwhile, the translated meaning, the
the diminished, hierarchical, politically convenient meaning is everywhere. It is in children's books. It is in Sunday school. It is in the cultural air. Step 5. The translated meaning becomes the foundation of law, of social structure, of how human beings understand themselves and each other. And by this point, questioning it feels not like scholarship, but like sacrilege. That is how you erase a human from the code of Genesis. Not with a deletion, with a mistranslation. Here is where I want to leave. If the foundational story of gender, the story that has been used to justify every structure of male dominance in Western civilization for 2,000 years, was built on a translation that goes against its own source text, if the word that was supposed to mean side, the other half of a whole human being, was quietly downgraded to rib, a spare part, a leftover, without most readers ever knowing. If a goddess who gave life was recycled into a woman who caused death, then the question isn't just about the Bible. The question is about method. The question is about what other foundational texts, in what other traditions, in what other domains of law, science, and politics have been quietly adjusted at the level of language to serve the needs of whoever held the pen. The first human was not erased from the record dramatically. There was no burning of manuscripts, no public decree. It happened in a single translation choice, a single word, tsela, side, not rib. Half of a whole, not a spare part. That word cost half of humanity its place in the original story. Think about what other words are costing us right now, and who is doing the translating. If you want to go deeper on the source texts, the Talmudic debates about the androgynous Adam, and the full documentary hypothesis behind Genesis, everything is linked in the description. Subscribe if you want more archaeology of ideas, and I'll see you in the next investigation.